welcome to the new episode of RisknFlow. Here we go again with exciting guest. Before I introduce him, I want to remind everybody to like, subscribe, and give the support our channel. Today's guest is a wonderful person. I'm super grateful to have him here today. A little bit effort we had to get him here, but finally, I'm super excited to have today's guest in the studio. So let me introduce him. He's entrepreneur, founder, and super creative director of Alt and Shift. Also, he is Porsche Lead Artist. So welcome to the studio, Patrick Vogel.
Hi, thank you for having me, Jana. Thank you.
Wonderful to have you here today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. I've just been on vacation in Greece, so I'm pretty relaxed at the moment. So all good. Feeling good. The weather is good for
That's
autumn. Autumn in Hamburg and no rain, which is amazing. So I'm quite grateful. It's a good time.
that's super nice to have a little bit Greek warmness before the cold winter, maybe.
Yes.
But Patrick, we are excited to know. Tell us a little bit about your background. Who are you and where do you come from?
The where do you come from question is a bit easier to answer, than who I am. So I'm gonna start answering that one. I was born in the middle of Germany in Dortmund. Maybe you know the soccer team; it's quite popular. And then in the age of 5, I moved to Hamburg because of my dad's working reasons. Everyone knows those reasons. Um, and so I grew up in the south of Hamburg. Like it's called, when you directly translate it, it's called the Old Land, das alte Land, which is like a famous, super old and traditional northern German apple tree and cherry tree plantage kind of location. So it's quite popular. It's a tourist location, and yeah, I had the luck, or maybe also the opposite, to grow up there. Um, yes, and then I moved to like the city of Hamburg in, I think, like 15 years ago, kind of. Um, yeah, and did some stuff on my journey, but that leads to the other question, who I am. Um, I I s- I don't know, to be honest. I don't know yet. I started studying architecture in 2008. So basically, I'm an architect, bachelor and master. I graduated in Wismar in northeast Germany, and then I moved to Hamburg in 2013 and worked as an architect. But really, really quickly, I got a bit of kind of de-illusionized. I don't know the word in English. You know what I mean? I thought, oh, when I'm done with my studies, I will be a famous architect. Long story short, it wasn't the case. So yeah, I realized quite quickly that architecture is not really my thing. I mean, in my studies, I learned to be like a creative one, to do creative designs. And when you then start as an architect to work as an architect, you realize quite fast that it's super long projects. The part of actually designing a building is like super small. Everything else is like bureaucracy. It's drawing plans. It's extremely technical. It's lots of conversations, even more problems to solve. And that was just not my thing. So I realized I don't want to do this anymore. That's not what I studied, because I studied like super creative. And then I changed my job and applied for a job at a famous German design agency. I worked there for like 6 months, and then I also quit that job because I realized, no, I don't. I want to do my own thing. Like that's what I want to do. I'm able to create cool stuff. I'm able to design, and I'm able to make things look cool. That's basically what I'm doing. And so my wife said to me, Tanya, she's also my best friend. She worked as an interior designer at that time. I met her in my studies. She's an interior designer. And so she said in 2016, dude, just do it. Be self-employed. Just start as a freelancer. I'll have your back. And so she forced me basically to create my own business, which was architectural visualization by that time, because I knew how to show a cool building, how to make it look in 3D, how to do cool visualizations. And yeah, so I started doing that. It was like on a cheap stolen chair. We stole that chair at a party in our studies. So I brought that chair to my flat. I had a super cheap IKEA desk with like a glass, like with like it was basically a glass working desk, which was extremely uncomfortable. Everyone knows that working on glass is like super shit. Um, and so I spent the first 2 years in my own kitchen. I got dressed up in the morning, like yes, to make myself feel like I'm going to work actually. And then the first clients came, and then the whole thing went bigger and bigger. And as it is always like that in Germany, it's this kind of, I don't know if the word in English exists, like the word mouth propaganda. I don't know if you know this word. It's called like when like just a recommendation business. So the first client was like
Yeah.
super happy, and he recommended me to the other ones. And so I'll shift was born in 2017 as an architectural visualization studio. And but it didn't stay like
That's
that. Maybe we can come to that point later. I'm doing way different stuff now.
Yeah, I really, really sure want to dig deeper on your entrepreneur story. And as you mentioned, you grow in the Hamburg, beautiful, beautiful place, and you have made already in the young age, as you described, you made the change from architectural career to the another one, and that's what I, in my experience, I see is in common those people who really sort of take the control of their lives, like they're not afraid to make that change. Did you ever hesitated to leaving the architecture? Obviously you have studied the career and all. Was that hard decision for you to make those shifts?
Yes, it was a super hard decision because I didn't grow up as a person who takes like high risks. Um, as I grew up like questioning everything. Oh, will that work? Will it work? Oh, let's chase like the path that is more secure, more safe. Um, and basically, it was all the props go to my wife, to Tanya. And she said, "Dude, I'm gonna kick your butt if you don't do it because you're just complaining." Because I knew I was unsatisfied. I was unhappy. I was complaining all the time. So yes, so maybe 50% of Tanya making me do this was, my like, my complaints all the day. She was just mad at me and tired of all the complaints, so she was like, "Just do it. It will work out." And that was basically the first step where I took a risk because I didn't know what I was doing. I never did visualizations for clients. I didn't have any kind of client. And so I think taking risks is something that you kind of learn. You can also teach yourself by being brave. I think being brave is like something that you also can learn. Because for me, braveness, is it called braveness, the word? Yeah, it is, right?
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
brave
braveness.
braveness is a thing that rewards you immediately. That is something that always comes up in my mind. If you're doing something brave in business, in life, you get a direct reward of because you don't know the outcome yet. If I'm doing something brave right now, in terms of business, I'm immediately happy because I did it, even though I don't know the outcome. Maybe it will turn out like utter shit. But as I don't know it yet, the fact that I've been brave is already motivating. It's a really, really cool thing. I would love to write a book about braveness. That's like the key, the key in being self-employed, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's like the cycle that like sort of feed itself. If even though, as you mentioned, you have made that maybe risky and brave decision, even though it doesn't work out maybe at that moment, you did it, and then you just like want some more. And
Yeah,
actually, you
that's
touched
exactly the point.
my next question, which was,
Yeah, no, I didn't want to
yeah,
interrupt. So,
I was about to ask maybe the inspiration behind that decision, but as you mentioned, it was your wife that made, "Hey, come on," kicking your ass.
yeah,
But was there any other maybe personal emotions that you wanted to shift your life, because you said you weren't happy, you were complaining, so those decisions
yeah,
comes always they come some a need of change.
yeah. I think being unsatisfied with your job situation is the thing that is also a key factor. Um, I think that's also the point that everyone has in common, who gets in or who founds a company or gets self-employed. All the people have in common the Yeah, and then it also it again leads to this one point of being brave. So will I do the step and get out of my own comfort zone and leave all these unsatisfied feelings behind? Or will I stay like this and go to a job I don't like, do something I don't like? Um, I think life is way too short for doing stuff you don't like. I mean, also in being self-employed in our business, in our agency, of course, we have sometimes some clients, some projects which we really don't like, which don't turn out great. There's all there will always be bread and butter business. So it's not like I'm the cool artist and every project is for Porsche and no, there's daily business and there ever will. But at least this the unsatisfying part of being self-employed is at least for yourself and not for somebody else. There's like a common joke. I don't know if it's too common, but it's about being employed. That's there's You have to imagine there is the employee sitting at his desk, and then the boss is coming and he is asking him, "Hey, look out of the window." And the employee says, "Oh, what's there?" And he said, "Do you see the Porsche over there?" And he's like, "Oh, yes, yes, I see it." And then the boss says, "Yeah, if you work hard enough, like really, really hard, I can afford another one." So that's the point. That's the point. Yeah, that's the point of being employed. It's just something in my mind that always told me, no, I I don't want to do that for somebody else. I don't want to make money for somebody else. Because in the end, it's of course about making money and having fun while making money. That's the truth, at least in capitalism.
Mm. Yes, that's definitely it is. And well, as you mentioned, those decisions come from the uncomfortableness you are maybe in situation, but also there are many people who choose that um sort of unsatisfied life instead of making that change, maybe because they are afraid, or they just it's sort of easier, of
Yeah,
course,
it is. It
if
is.
you jump to unknown.
It is always easier. You're totally right. People are complaining, but complaining in the end is easier than changing anything or changing at least one thing. So there's another thing I recently read. I would really recommend that book. It's about being brave. It's a cool book. It's from Ryan Holiday. He writes or he wrote 4 books about all of the every single one of the Stoic virtues, which is quite cool. There's one book. It's
Mm.
exactly about braveness, and I read one phrase that really changed my way of thinking. That was one really cool thing. Um, you wait a second. You choose the things you don't change. Yes,
That's
that's really true. I had to translate it because of course I
sure.
read it in German. So yeah, the things you don't change, you choose, and that's
Choose.
basically it.
That's really true, and a good reflection at some point in your life to really reflect on those. And as you mentioned, you weren't maybe that brave in when you were a child, and you didn't have this risk taking capabilities. Maybe, I don't know if there's something. Did your family, for example, do you have any background on entrepreneurship in there, or
Ah,
is it
a
just
bit.
your inner change?
No, a slight bit. My granddad, he did something similar. I think he was born in the 20s, and after the war, he was a driver, and he sold bread. He brought bread to the people, to the supermarkets, and that was his job. He worked for a bread baking company. And after a while, he just decided to like establish his own driving school. He decided, I'm going to be a driving teacher, and I'm going to have the best driving school in Dortmund. And he exactly did that. It's what he did. He just learned everything, and then he had like one of the most successful driving schools in Dortmund, Fahrschule Vogel, which was just um, an amazing thing. And I don't really realize it, but maybe this somehow had always a slight impact on me, on my life. I don't know, but my granddad, he
Yeah.
did this. So, and maybe that, yeah, yeah. But nobody else in my family. Everyone is employee.
It's always nice to be the first in the family to try something different, and maybe in subconscious level your grand dad has affected on you to
Yeah,
shift
I
in
think
your life
so.
a
Yeah.
little bit different. But you
So
said you
that's
were 2 years in your kitchen and starting your entrepreneurship career. Share us what happened next, how your business started to evolve, and what's the risk worth taking at the moment.
mm, yes, totally. It made total sense. I think all the risks I took till now made perfect sense. In the end, every thread you spun, I don't know if that's the right word, is going together. Which there will be the day where you have this one idea where every contact you made, every decision you made, every risk you took makes perfect sense. Even though I wanted to say a bad a swear word, even though you fucked up some things, and they didn't work out in the end. Somehow it will all lead together. So for my studio, it was great to take every risk, um, to decide, should we really do this? Maybe another example for the work in our studio is that sometimes a client comes to us. That's kind of our credo. A client comes and says, "Can you do this and that?" And we don't have a clue about like how should we do that. We never did that. We really literally never did that, like doing a concept character for a comic or whatever. Or like there was one project from Porsche. They asked, can you do like characters for another department? And I said yes. And I was like, maybe I promised a bit too much. But we just know that, yeah, we just really know that you can learn everything. And for me also, like having this kind of pressure to deliver something cool is also forcing me like to learn new stuff, to like break boundaries, to push my own limits, which is quite amazing. And you're every time you're saying yes to something you're not experienced doing it, you're taking another risk and you're being brave. And there we are back at this kind of this at this braveness thing. Um, like this direct reward of being brave, even though you don't know the outcome. Maybe you will fuck it up. It's I don't know. But this direct outcome is you're directly satisfied, you're happy, and you learned. You made another step and another thing that was brave. So being brave in the future will get easier and easier and easier. And that's the thing. I think that's the key factor and the key point of successful people and successful businesses.
Yeah, you need to also experience those moments of uncertainness and failure. You need to sort of drop down and come back up, which leads me to the next question. What's your biggest, so to say, failure, or what something happened that it didn't work out maybe as you planned?
I have to think about that because I think I can't really tell because I tend to not plan out things. So I'm always quite like, oh, okay, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. To be really, really honest, I can't tell you anything that didn't work out till now. It's mostly very, very private things. In terms of business, everything works because of taking risks, of doing the best I can, of like estimating, oh, can I do this? And working hard. Like the business side of my life always went really, really, really good. Of course, everyone knows we're in Europe at the moment, and everyone has some economic. The economy is not like it was in the last five
Yes.
years. That's the truth. I think the whole world economy, but that's that's a factor that comes from the outside. So of course, the income can be less in the next years. I don't know. Um, but for me, the setbacks and the failures were more like in my private life. I lost a lot of a lot of beloved people in my family. We had really, really, really bad stuff going on in the last 3 years in personal life. So I think maybe it's
Mm,
okay that business went well then.
yes. Yeah, life goes on, and all things happen. So I'm really glad to hear during this difficult economical situation, your creativity flourished there. And as you described, you are a creative director. Also, you're the Porsche Lead Artist. Where does this creativity in you come from? Have you always been like that in your childhood, or
Well, that's a
can you
good
tell us a little
question.
bit?
That's a good question. I was asking that myself the other day. I don't think so. I don't think that I was always like the creative child. No, no, really. When I was 5, we moved to this to like the south of Hamburg, where I grew up on this tiny village, 5,000 inhabitants. Um, and no, I don't think I was the creative child. I was always a bit kind of loud, and I was the noisy child. And, like I was always this. At my time, there was no name for it. Today, people call it ADHD. But it's just a name for me. It's a To be really honest, I had a really, really tough time in school because I really didn't like it. I would never go to school for one single day again. Never. Because I didn't fit into the especially the German school system. I don't know about Finland but the German school system is like maybe it comes from the war times, from a lot of stuff in our system still is from a historical way from the war, like shaped from it. So in German schools, it's still to this day, it's super important that you stay in line, you stay into this kind of yeah, it's it's super rigid. You have to be like this. For example, in the German school system, when you're doing like a math exercise, like we all did in school, like analysis, like you're calculating something, and you get the result, and the result is correct. When you did this super creative and you found it out by yourself, and you found a creative way to come to the exact right result, you don't get good points. You get a bad mark because it's not the way you learned it. You have to be in Germany. You have to be like this. Oh, sorry. Um, and that's for me. Yeah, you see, I'm super. I'm raging now. Now, so that's something, and that's just an example of what's wrong in this system for me. So I didn't fit into it. So when you're you learn in German school, you learn not to be creative. That's I think that it's seems to be a secret in the system, but in Germany, in my eyes, in the schools, it's their aim number one to create like little soldiers who stay in line and be like the best employees. So so I didn't really know about this creative side. Of course, I was good in doing arts in school, yes, but yeah. Then in the 12th grade or something, I had in my mind that I wanted to study fashion design. So there was this one point where I kind of emancipated from this rigid system, and I was like, yes, yes, no, I'm gonna be a fashion designer. And of course, as my dad is German, he said, isn't this not a bit too high risky? And maybe if you want to do something creative, architecture would be a good way, because it's also creative, but also it's a good job. So I decided, not because of my dad, but I thought about that, and I was like, oh, maybe it's cool to build some cool houses, some cool buildings, and yes, that was that story.
Well, that was super interesting to hear the your childhood in Germany. And as what comes to the education system, I feel the same way, that the school, if you learn something, you need to write it down as you learn it. There's no like room for improvisation, as you described. Maybe find your own creative way. Even though you get the same result, it's not accepted. And I think that's what's wrong with the system. I think it still is that way, that people need to sit down and you need to memorize things. You not learn for the life, you learn
Yep.
for copying or
Yeah.
something. And that's really really sad. I don't think people are really, of course there's this bureaucracy and all, but I think there should be some room for creativeness. And as you mentioned, which is sad to hear, that you never would go back to school. and
No, no,
and
no,
also
never in
many
life.
entrepreneurs, well, all those big minds are not the great in school, so to say. So maybe there's something in common, and maybe we should reflect on our society, maybe someday, and that
Yeah.
will have the difference.
Yeah.
But let's go back to your company a little bit. You mentioned there's risks on the way, but what would you say? What was the biggest risk in the journey? Maybe it was taking that first decision to start your business, or maybe it has come on the way.
The biggest risk is, I can't tell you right now. I'm standing right in front of the biggest risk of my life, which is some amazing things that change. I can tell you this much. I had an idea. It's it's it was a week ago, and Tanya and I, we talked about it, and we said, this is like, it's golden. That's the golden idea. It's this one idea, and so we planned out everything, and we are shifting our career completely. So we are standing like so close in front of taking the biggest risk of our lives. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry,
So
this is the first thing that somebody says, that you are on the edge of the risk. So you leave us hanging in the like,
yes,
what
yes, I have
happened?
to. I have to. So yeah, basically, I'm super excited, and I already made the decision. So we are taking this risk, and it will be worth it. I'm super sure. So life is way too short for. Yeah, but on the other
Mhm.
hand, I'm refusing to take other risks. Like, I always had the dream to learn a backflip on my bicycle, um, but now I have so ambition. I have so high ambitions on my job life that maybe it's better not to take the risk of trying backflips on bicycles. So there is always a difference between risk and risk. So I think being healthy should be a big, big, big goal. Because when you're not healthy, you're not in a condition to take risks. So for taking
Yes,
risks, you have
yes,
to be
and
healthy, and yeah.
yeah, that's a really, really good approach. My background is on the well-being and the fitness and all of that. So I'm always happy to see people have this mentality also to have this courage to keep themselves maybe well have a great lifestyle. And as you mentioned, if you are healthy, you are more open, you're more creative, you're more willing to
Mhm.
take those risks. And it's nice to hear that you have this approach to life, that you have mentioned various of times during this episode that life is sort of now and you need to live in the moment. So where does this come from? Have you some personal experiences maybe that have shifted also that kind of
Yes.
thought, or
Yes, totally. 3 years ago, or I think now 3.5 years ago, I lost my dad, who was my best friend, like
Mm,
I'm honest when I say he literally was my best friend. He was the guy who came with us on our bachelor's trip. On my bachelor's party, like, all my friends said, "Where's your dad? Your dad has to come." It was this kind of friendship where
wonderful.
I talked to him every day. Like, we talked every day. He was literally my best friend, and with him passing away, I realized that because he was, at least as we know, he was a healthy man, and from this to the other day, he just passed away. And long story short, I realized that it can be the end pretty quickly, like you won't even expect. So maybe you should do the things in life you really want, because you otherwise you will question yourself all the time. What if? What if? What if? So of course it's basically it's so comfortable to complain every day and to go to your job you don't like. It's People would say, "No, I don't like the job. For me, it's tough to do it." No, it isn't. It isn't. And there's another thing, which is people also have this thing in mind that they do a job they don't like, but they expect to be like well paid, or they expect to be like honored by the boss. But when you do a job, you have to realize when you do a job you don't like, there will be your colleague on the next desk who likes exactly that job. And you will never be better than him because you don't like the job.
Sure.
The one who likes exactly that boring job you're doing as well will always be better than you. That's also learning. So yes. Sorry, I
Mm.
went this direction to from your question.
Yeah, I'm just listening here, super inspired, and that's the really right attitude. And I really it you told about your dad, and that really puts the life in the perspective. As you mentioned it, he was your best friend, and maybe, well, if I reflect a little bit on my relationship to my parents, of course they are really near to me, but maybe I don't know, we don't spend that much time together calling every day. So I that's really nice to hear that you have had this really unique relationship and you really appreciate those moments with him.
Yeah, 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 I do, or I did.
But yes, yes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for your dad, but
No worries,
I'm
no
sure
worries.
you
I'm
have
I'm
the greatest moments.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No worries. I'm just being honest. It's a thing that changed my perspective a bit on life. I mean, always, when something happens and it's really fresh, you're always like, yeah, from now on I will act like this, like that. But the regarding your question, most of the things that changed myself a bit were personal. And this personal change, for example, my wife and I, we survived the earthquake in Nepal in 2015. There was also like, we were like so close of being hit by a facade coming down of building. Like that, you always, when you're in this situation where something is happening, like a huge disruption in your life, you're like, from now on everything will change. And then of course you make it back to Germany, and people always, especially in my case, I could just talk for myself. I tend to forget all these things. Like you say to yourself, from now on, I will be brave every day. No, it's a hustle, and it's something you have to learn. You have to focus on. It's nothing. I think there is not this one thing that changes everything. It always changes temporarily, and you have to be focused and concentrated to keep this change. I think keeping changes for yourself is really, really important.
Yeah, and I think it's the hardest thing. On the previous episode, I had a privilege to talk with a researcher of decision making and risk taking, and what we came up that the risk taking and making some change in your life, it's always, of course, as humans, it starts from the emotion, and emotion, it will come down because we don't like be in the high level of emotion all the time. So when the emotion drops, then you need to find the focus to continue also, as you mentioned.
Yeah, totally agree.
How would you describe your risk taking? To come back a little bit, you mentioned you haven't been that a risk taker, but how your approach to risk taking has changed during these years?
I think it's this kind of it's just a learning curve. It's really, really simple. I mean, the explanation of it is super simple. You do it, and it also like you take the first risk. You're like super happy you did it because you immediately get some dopamine out of it, because you don't know the outcome, but you're like, I just took a risk. I was just being brave. And then maybe you have some good friends who said, oh wow, you're self-employed now, even though your studio is not running yet, or your company. It doesn't matter. The first people or your family says, "Oh, I wouldn't have done that." And this is also something you learn. You're like, "Oh, cool. I'm the one. I did something you wouldn't have done. Wow, cool." And it gives you confidence. It makes you more confident in taking risks. And I think it's kind of a learning curve. It's all the factors from the outside, your friends, your family, how people react, because it is something that, of course, we don't learn in school. So it is something where people look up to, even though they don't know the outcome yet. You're the one who is self-employed now. You who took a risk, who changed the stuff you didn't like. So that's something. And it leads you to taking the next risk because you want that feeling again. It's cool. It's like falling in love. Like you all remember. Everyone remembers this butterflies in your belly. So that's when you're nervous, and that's something. It's quite similar. It's not a similar feeling, but you want it's
Yeah.
something you miss after a while, and you want that again. Um, I mean, in love, it's tough, but by taking risks, you can have this. Yeah, it's it's a learning it's a learning path, and
Mm.
I think a good tip I also read in that book of Ryan Holiday. So props to Ryan Holiday. Is the learning curve. You can make it way like. You can flatten that curve a little bit to make it easier by doing stuff you don't want to do, like on the day. Like this, there's this one client. He makes you feel like really uncomfortable, and you're like, no, I'm gonna call him now. So like by doing the stuff you usually procrastinate or something, you can just do the little stuff that like, and it all sums up in the end and makes you take risks way faster.
Yeah, I was just about to also ask, should you have any like a pro tip for somebody who is considering to maybe start their entrepreneurship journey, or maybe taking that risk towards changing their lives? What
Yeah,
would you say?
two. I would say I have no, three tips. Get a person in your life who really supports you, makes taking risks way easier because you have kind of this safety net, just a social safety net. Then the second point is do really small risks and brave steps every day. Like see it as a personal training for yourself. You're like training yourself. There's this one phone call you don't want to make because it's yeah. Or you had this you scratched somebody's car and call them and do the stuff you don't want to do. That would be tip number two, because you can just flatten out this taking risk learning curve. You get in the end you get braver and braver. And the third one is think about if failing would be so would change your life in case the risk you're taking leads you to failing your business. What can happen? I mean, for me, of course, it always depends on the location you are. I wouldn't love to fail in the United States, for example, because of some social
Mm.
safeties we have here in Germany. So think about what is the worst case that can happen. If this case is okay for you, why not taking the risk? Then if the worst case is okay for you in your mind, like maybe my business fails, but okay, then I will work in a supermarket for 1 year and then I'm back. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to sound rude. I'm working in a supermarket is nothing bad. It was
Yeah.
just an example for being employed.
Yes.
Um,
Hmm.
and what's the worst scenario you can imagine? If that scenario is okay for you, like something you can navigate out of, why not doing it? Then the answer is you're not doing it because you're too lazy, because it's your comfort zone. So these are like basically the tips. I never thought about that, but I'm in talking flow right now.
Creativity, I think it comes out of you. But anyway, yes, that going out of your comfort zone, making those small risks, and as you mentioned, what's the worst thing to happen in most cases? If like you you can live and nobody dies, the risk is worth to take. Like in most cases,
Yeah,
you don't lose like your maybe your house, as in German there is some support. Well, of course in different world parts it's different, but like what's the worst case to happen? So that's really good. If nothing really worse happen, why don't you? And if you
yeah,
don't, maybe just maybe you don't really want it, or as you mentioned, maybe it's just lazy and you want to stay where you are.
yeah. That's basically, and you can compare it to the things we discussed. You can also project it on the risk of um, doing a backflip on your bike when you're not really able to handle your bike. So the worst case is you break your neck and you're dead. So and that's a case I wouldn't accept. So maybe I shouldn't take the risk then, even though I would love to learn it. But then the learning curve, then you should maybe work on that progress curve and tweak the curve. Of course, you can learn everything, but sometimes the risk is way too high, and then you just deconstructed to all the small parts. Maybe it is totally possible for me to learn a backflip on a bike, but maybe it takes me 10 years and I'm going to start 1 year of learning how to handle my bike properly. And in the second year, I'm learning a small bunny hop on my bike. So that's, you can also deconstruct risks when you have the time.
Yes, yes, and also I'm a love going out with the bike and going a little bit the mountains and all that, and anything can happen also, like
Yeah.
even though you go with the straight line. So like you to come that you shouldn't just wait things to happen. Just
Yeah.
go for the go for it.
Yeah. Totally.
But hey, at the end of this podcast, I have two more questions. I want to still a little bit know about your business and as your work also the Porsche are directing. How is it going and how has it been?
That was something, as I told, in my career, we founded Artshift, where we are doing architectural visualization, animation, like 3D. We make stuff look cool with our 3D tools. Um, but a couple of years ago, I started to do some personal art stuff. Like it's on Instagram. It's my handle is real Patrick Vogel. You can look that up. Um, and like after 1 or 2 years, the phone rang and there was Lars Krämer, the one of the innovation managers of Porsche, and he was like, "Man, we saw your work. Do you want to work with us?" And I thought about it for like 0.0 seconds, and I was like, "Yes, of course." Um, and he said, "Yeah, but you're in a pitch situation right now. We will also we have to ask some agencies and." Yeah, so the same day I created some stuff for them and I sent it over in the evening, even though that wasn't the task. It was just a get to know each
Right.
other call, and then they were quite happy. They were like, "Wow, okay, that's pretty cool." And so maybe I decided the pitch in my favor. So as you see. And then I worked for Porsche and I created their this first NFT collection from Porsche. We're in this kind of NFT high times, digital collectible times. I think NFT is also a really, really bad word, and I don't want to be associated with that. So I created Porsche's first digital collectible, and then in the last 2 years, another stuff came. Created key visuals for Porsche events, and yeah, at the moment, I just finished one project for Porsche. Yeah, I can't talk about that. Um, and yeah, the projects are coming, and sometimes it's a bit calmer. It's always yeah.
Mm.
That's my journey with Porsche, and through Porsche, I got to know so many cool clients. For example, a really cool project I worked with this Italian design furniture company called Poltrona Frau, which is maybe you know them. I think everyone should because they're creating the coolest furniture on the planet. Um, and I did their campaign, and yeah, I'm kind of having 50% alt shift and 50% in the last years are shifting to my own art career and being this creative, uh, self entitled creative genius. um, And that's what I try to achieve, and this is also what I told you. This leads also to the decision I'm doing next. So it also it has to do with yeah with my art and stuff. It will be crazy.
Super exciting. And also that's kind of touching a little bit the architecture side of you, the furniture designing and all that. So you get a little bit back to your roots maybe to work with them. But I did I want I would like to know also what's the most inspiring thing to be entrepreneurship to to have your own company? What would you say?
I think it's the same. mm, I had a talk with a friend of mine, and he told me, I have this cool new computer game. And I was like, "Okay, what is it about?" "Yeah, it's called Anno 1701 or whatever, game." And I was like, "Yeah, and why are you playing it, like, all the day?" "Yeah, you can build your kingdom, and you can build your own empire." And I was like, "Dude, you can do that in real life, you know? You don't have to have a computer game for that." And I think it's this kind of building something from value. Like, you're building basically value if it's like m- money value or like ideal values or whatever you're creating something out of basically nothing, and that's something that it's super inspiring for me. It's I don't have the ambition to grow like we also Alt Shift. We don't want to grow Alt Shift. We are three people. So we have some freelancers, of course, here and there, but that's not my motivation. My intrinsic motivation is not growth or revenue. It's, of course, revenue is cool. I admit it. Everyone likes to make money, but it's the fun of knowing that it's yours. It's just yours.
And is it 3 people and the dog, right?
3 people and the dog. Yeah.
Normally, I ask at the last question, what are your dreams or fears, but or maybe the risks. But as you left, I was like the hanging on the edge of your biggest change. So I think there's some relation on that. But is there anything you would like to share at the end of the episode?
No, that just I'm super happy for having that you had me in the show, and I love the concept. By the way, that's something I want to say, that you talk about risks. It's such a specific podcast, which is super cool. It's amazing. I think you were helping a lot of people. That's quite cool. So yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun.
I'm super grateful to have this chat with you, and what you shared is like I already changed something in my mind to listen to you, your wise words and inspiration, and that's what I want to bring to the people. Maybe because I'm not the as you mentioned, you haven't been always the risk taker, so I would say I'm not that person also, and I want to learn to make and take bigger risks in my life. So this is really inspiring, and to also just the thing to taking that risk all already makes me more excited and all.
Yeah,
And um and I think we need to have you here again, because now we don't know what happened, so we want to hear.
totally. Cliffhanger.
Yeah, cliffhanger, that's the word I was searching. But hey, Patrick, I just say a huge thank for you and to being in the show today, and I wish you all the best and excitement with your next risk in life.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.